Hello, everybody. I see people slowly coming in, so I won't quite start yet. Just give us a second for everybody to enter the webinar. It's always an exciting time. It's like when you open the doors at a party. There's a lot more people than come to my parties. Okay. Hello, everybody. My name's Dave West. I'm your host today. This is my first time hosting for a long time, so I apologize if I get anything horribly wrong. But I asked to host this webinar because it's got a particular place in my heart. I've been doing a lot of work with Tomak and Rishi and Eleanor and others on this particular thing, and I'll tell you the context for this in a moment. But welcome to today's Scrum Pulse webinar. Thank you for taking the time on this. I'm actually in Boston, and it's a cloudy, wet, cold, yucky day here on December. So thank you for taking the time to join us today. So let me tell you a little bit of story, and then I'll introduce you to our speakers. And also go through some logistics. But before we do those, let me just tell you a story, which I think really sets the context for this. So about 4 years ago, I was in Sao Paulo in Brazil. And because Sao Paulo is such a long way from Boston, I traveled to Sao Paulo, and I asked to go and see a lot of clients. Now, you know, CEO of Scrum.org, I have the benefit or the opportunity to go and visit lots of different organizations, and I did in Sao Paulo in Brazil. And it was a fantastic experience. The food, the people, it was awesome, and I love Brazil. But on the second day, first day, end of the first day, I was in a sprint review, and I realized that the sprint review was going reasonably well, but I realized that the real focus of the review was not outcomes and value. It was actually work. And I sort of, this really disquieted me. And so obviously I then went and ate lots of fabulous food, which is what you do in Brazil, drank quite a little bit as well. But it was sort of like this at the back of my mind. And then from the rest of that trip, I really focused on, are we really using Scrum to deliver value, or are we using Scrum to do work? Now, some of you may say there's a connection between those two. Obviously, if you're very smart and you've defined exactly what the work should be for that value, then it's all easy peasy. But actually, my experience is that's not the case, and that we ultimately aren't delivering on the full potential. And this concern, I use this concern in multiple conversations after that trip, of which Tom, Rishi, Eleanor, and another person called Christopher from McKinsey were on these conversations, and we started this research. This was the genesis to this whole webinar that you're seeing today, to the research document that we published a few weeks ago, and to many of the sort of blogs and other things we've done around value. So hopefully that provides some context, and for people that are late arriving, you haven't missed anything anyway. So Rishi, can you move to the next slide, and then I'll so these are the guidelines. I'm not very good at this stuff, so I apologize. Your microphones were muted throughout, you know, to avoid that dog barking in the background, or somebody using a leaf blower, or, you know, whatever the situation is, disco music, or because you're probably late at night if you're in a different part of the world at a nightclub or something. The session is recorded, so if you like what you hear and you say, oh, I need to share this with Bob, you know, you will get a link to that, which is great. Please ask questions using the Q&A icon. If you have technical problems, also obviously use the chat and say, hey, I've got a problem here, and one of us will try to answer it. Apologize if we don't do a great job there. Next slide, Rishi. And as I said, this is a Scrum Pulse webinar. Most of you know who Scrum.org is, organization founded on the mission to help people and teams solve complex problems by the co-creator of Scrum, Ken Schwaber. I'm Dave West. I'm the CEO here at Scrum. So I guess chairman of the board, Ken, there is my boss, and we do training, certification, and there's lots and lots of material on Scrum.org website to help you deliver agility and Scrum a little bit easier in your organization. So feel free to use all those resources. So I'd like to just click onto the next slide and just introduce our speakers. I'll let them introduce themselves, but I've been working with Rishi and Thomas for probably 3 years, 4 years, and I've found that time incredibly insightful. They're fortunate. I wander around the world talking to people about complex work and the use of Scrum. These people actually go and do it. So their experience is infinitely more robust and more complete than mine. Though I do ask them a lot of questions. So sometimes I feel that they are sort of taking my work into the world and testing it, which is really, really good. So we're very fortunate to have them here. Both of them work at McKinsey. So I would want to introduce yourself. Rishi, Thomas, welcome to Scrum Pulse.
Thank you so much, Dave. Thank you for having us. Hey, all, I'm really, really happy to meet all of you and be here and be fortunate enough to present some of the work we've been doing. I'm based out of the Washington, D.C. office for McKinsey. I have a long career in helping organizations realize what value means versus what work is. And as Dave mentioned, a lot of the research we've done over the past year and a half has brought some quantitative focus on what that means, especially what the work we do today can be more effectively focused on to generate more value. I've also been fortunate to be a professional Scrum trainer from Scrum.org, and wear that badge proudly, and happy, once again, happy to be here and answer any questions. Tomas, do you want to go next?
Yes, hi, I'm Thomas. I'm from Warsaw, Poland. So it's the end of my day. I'm on the second part of the group that Dave was talking about. So it's dark, it's cold, and it's very Eastern European, which is great. So all of you who are from this part of the world, welcome, and I'm happy that you come and spend the afternoon with us. I love agility. I've been doing it professionally, I would say, for the last 6 years, and I really enjoy what I do. And I think this topic perfectly fits into my progress as a practitioner. Right at the beginning, I was also focused so much on getting stuff done, and then as I grew, I understood there's more to it, like Dave said in his story. And I'm very happy to be here with you and share my passion for for my work and my passion for what we've been doing together recently. On a side note, I am now on a paternity leave, and I am just enjoying the time with my kids and these types of talks. So very happy to be here, and let's get to it. So if we think about it, and if we look at what's happening in the world, agility is doing great, right? I mean, State of Agile report says that 94% of companies are practicing Agile. Teams, there's always software development teams. There's even agility now going beyond software, right? We're showing, there's like Harvard Business Review talks about, has had a series of articles about how great agility is. We as McKinsey have done our research many times to show amazing impact numbers for enterprises that have taken up agility as their ways of working. So I think it's great, right? So this is where we started. Like, hey man, like everything is great. Where do we go? Let's look deeper. Let's really get to know what's going on. Like, or have we won the cup? Oh, it's very on top now, right? I mean, the World Cup. Yeah. So have we won it? Are we the champions? Are we doing such a great job? There's nothing else to improve. Well, if we go to the next slide. Yeah, but right, there is things we've seen, right? So a lot of times teams are doing stuff they don't really know what measure of success is. Like, why are we doing what we're doing? A lot of tasks are just measured by the number of tasks completed, not by the value or by what they brought to the business. And as you know, like there's the big topic about business value and bringing it very close, tech and business together. Not just having a product owner who says he represents the business, but actually bringing those two together. Many times it's just tasks. And the key thing is, let's make sure that we're all getting better velocity every sprint. I probably many of you have heard this and many of you have seen this, but we observe this in our job, me and Rishi and many others of our friends who work with us. We see this and then we're like, hey, like this isn't real Scrum, this isn't real Agile. Like there is actually a problem, and where is it coming from? Let's if we move to the next one. See, this is where I think it got stuck. Yeah. So, and it's even true for a lot of us in our work, right? If we look, this is everyone's favorite diagram, but you see this in their work, right? I mean, you see that it starts with big upfront planning, and then we put it in Scrum, and then at the end we get sort of a output. Everyone's favorite Scrum waterfall or Scrum waterfall Scrum, right? So, and this is happening as well. It's becoming very mechanical, very focused on just tasks, getting stuff done without actually thinking about why are we doing it. So if we go to the next slide. So this is what we tackle. This is what really drove this observation really drove our research. Are teams really delivering value or just doing work? And you know, at one point we really thought about it, and more and more stories came popping in our head of teams just doing work, or of big enterprises with hundreds of teams that just doing work without understanding the value they're delivering, or their value they don't even know they're delivering value at one point. So this is very, very close to our hearts, and we see that every day. So this is where we came together as a team. Over almost a year and a half, we dove into this topic, discussing it, researching it, and really trying to understand what can be done and what are the things we observed. If we go to the next slide. So just before we jump into our research, it's important to define how we, and you know, there's many ways to define value, how we define value and what we believe is value. And we believe market value is the best way to define it, is that a product success is measured by the number of potential users and customers aware of it. And this makes our research a bit more focused, right? Because as you all know, value is we could do a separate research on what do you think value is. So we really wanted to find one definition that we would stick to.
Yep.
And I do encourage you, I do encourage every team and every person on this webinar to have that discussion and sit down, like, what is value for us? How do we define it?
And Thomas, just to add on, right? Our definition of value was not over the moon, right? It was a pretty low benchmark. It was simply potential users and customers being aware of what your organization or your team provides. Nothing about success, nothing about hitting certain customer satisfaction metrics. Just awareness was the basic mantra we were going for.
Yeah. And why is working to value or so important? I think we all know it. It's sort of the driver of motivation if we look at drive or start with why. But it really provides sort of three key areas, right? It provides the ability for the team to be innovative, right? So really be flexible and learn and be innovative. You can't be innovative if you cannot learn or you cannot try things, right? Or if you don't know what you're doing, if you're just getting stuff done, like whoop, 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 task, look at me. 20 tasks, how many did you do? That's not, no innovation is going to come for that. Next is it helps teams to understand a purpose, and a purpose is one of the key measures of motivations or things that really drive us, hence the name of the book. So it does really help to be self-managed and does help the team really deliver amazing results. Pretty much teams that, you know, use their intelligence and are able to tackle hard things will be much more motivated and will be happier. And finally, I think one of the key things that we sometimes forget in working in Scrum or Agile in general is that there is a customer, and we have to focus on our customer. We really have to build a relationship with them. And by clearly defining value like we did and with market value, you cannot achieve it without talking to your customer. And again, in my experience, I have seen many times where the customer is the person that's higher up in the food chain, and that's the customer. And whatever he or she says, that's the most important thing. And there is never an actual interaction with the customer. So I think is usually the first thing when I work with teams is trying to fix. Yeah. So as you know, and as you are all aware, you know, there was a big update to the Scrum Guide in 2020. And I think on top of the product goal, which really makes it stick out, like this is what we're going for, guys. This is important to the whole team. This is what we're building, and why are we building it? it has been become important. And additionally, in every sprint, we need to have that review. We need to think about what value are we bringing with our sprint, and can we achieve that value by the end of the sprint, and and how do we get it done, right? So these are all things that are supposed to highlight the importance of focusing on value for Scrum teams. Maybe Rishi, as a Scrum trainer, maybe you want to add something. I don't have that badge yet, but maybe one day.
For sure, for sure. But yes, as you said, you know, the ability to commit to a goal, whether it be a product goal or a sprint goal, is something we have not seen happen a lot in our work. Even today, when we go to some of our clients, most of them struggle to create a singular outcome, customer-focused sprint goal. And as most of you know, the product goal was a new addition to the Scrum Guide in 2020. And it's become all the more important for teams to commit to an outcome of some sort that helps them evolve their product backlog as a result of that commitment. And once again, you know, we are not seeing a lot of these happen in the industry. So as Thomas said, that's what drove a lot of our research.
Yeah. So yeah, everyone's favorite sprint goal is to finish everything in the sprint backlog, right? Come on, show of virtual hands. I mean, I can't see them, but I assume some of you have had that experience. Our sprint goal is to get everything done in the sprint backlog. Yeah, that's not what we're talking about here, just to be very clear. So we did a survey. We sent it out to pretty much everyone that was in our network or in our network of networks. There was no, like, we didn't focus on just groups. We said anyone can answer. We sent it to as a wide group as possible. We got some answers, and what we found out is that, you know, most of the people that were answering the surveys were saying, yeah, 80% said understanding where the value is, we are delivering the value to. 81% said that they are aware how they create value. 74 said, you know, that they believe their work creates value, and finally, that 65, so this is the worst number, only 2/3 of people said that their product backlog and product goal are transparent, right? But still, it's pretty good, right? So, hey, are we maybe not, there's nothing to, like, everything is fine, right? Maybe there is nothing to fix. But as we dove deeper and we started talking to experts, right?
Yeah, I want to take a minute to actually emphasize how shocking some of these numbers were, because I still remember, I vaguely, I guess, remember the day we got back the results of the survey, Tomas, and I remember you, me, Chris, Dave, looking at these numbers, and we were like, what's going on? Because when we looked at these numbers, everybody said they understand what their organization aspires to. They understand how their work connects to what their organization aspires to. They understand how their work creates value. And they believe transparency, for the most part, exists in their organizations. And we were all left wondering, are we actually wasting our time, right? If there is no problem. And yeah, the results were actually a bit shocking when we got back some of these results from our survey.
Yeah, but of course we also remember that in a lot of times when we work with clients, they're saying everything is fine, right? So it's also sort of I don't know if that's the correct thing, but like the lobster doesn't know it's getting cooked until it's already cooked sort of situation, right? So yeah, but we saw these numbers like, hey, I mean, maybe there is no problem. But then we said, let's take a different turn. Let's talk to people that are a bit outside, right? They are not in the teams, but they're observers. They're working with people. They meet them in trainings. They meet them at clients, right, where they work. We talk to PSTs. We talk to Ken, and well, that's not the story we got from them, right? Or also based on our experience, we talked to our colleagues, and we saw something very different, right? We saw that, you know, there's the perception of value is not very clear, or that there's a very clear more output versus outcome focus, which we all clear about, like how important it is to focus on outcomes over outputs and other things. We saw that, you know, that we heard from them stories that, we as Agile practitioners, they're in our heads now and we can't get them out. We have to help these people. Like something is not working, right? So we took the survey, we took our interviews, and we continued our work. So with that, we identified 4 missed opportunities that companies can take, but also teams, right? Or you as individual working with your teams. The first one is that management treats Agile teams like cogs in a machine without empowering them. Just, hey, here you go, do it. Next, we saw that a lot of times work is prioritized by the size of the task and team capacity without actually even discussing what is the potential value of this thing we're doing. Finally, we observed, and this was, hurt, like right in our Agile coach heart, like that many times Agile coaches are more focused towards enabling Scrum done right versus value delivered. So more focused on the process by clicking the boxes than actually guiding the team to deliver value. And last but not least, that teams are not really talking to customers at all or not enough on rare occasions. Like situations like there is no customer or anyone who can represent the customer at any sprint reviews and things like that, right? So these are the 4 missed opportunities we've identified. And now we'll go through each one and share real stories from our work that show you what happened and how what was changed to fix it, how we used it to help those teams.
Yep. I think, Thomas, this is a good point to stop and just summarize a storyline to date, especially for people who have just joined, right? So a year and a half to 2 years ago, we started out by asking, does value equal work, right? Does all work that people do ultimately drive value? We chose to create a survey that we sent out to everyone in our network. The results that came back really surprised us because everyone was telling us that there is no problem. After we received those survey results, in addition to the experience that we've had working with teams, we also started networking with our professional networks and started interviewing them and asking them if their experience was the same. Most of them, actually all of them, agreed with the fact that there was no transparency in product sprint goals, organizational goals. People were simply running on hamster wheels. There was no alignment broadly between what teams are working on and what the organization wants. And from there, we basically came up with 4 hypothesis statements that Thomas just went over. So as he said, we'll dive deep into each of these 4 statements.
Quickly, because we also won't have time for Q&A and sort of a one-sided discussion. Because we can only read the questions you put in, but we'll try to make it as interactive as possible. Okay, let's continue. So there's a big CPG company that wants to deliver a next generation product, but it's facing the classic sort of picture where the senior leadership sort of divides work into smaller teams and gives them work like, this is for your team, and without them actually talking, it's sort of like dropped on them. So they don't see the big picture and they're not empowered to question any decision. So this is the first missed opportunity. If we go to the next slide. Right, so the work is just split across teams. They don't talk to each other. They have no permission to speak and discuss this with their leaders. So, and we saw this in our survey, right? That 80% of teams agreed that their team purpose is handed down. So almost half of teams just get their purpose given to them in an envelope or maybe in a Jira ticket. Most of them disagreed that they can challenge it, right? And finally, that the budgeting process is transparent, right? So these were signs that we got from the survey. So what can be done? First of all, and most important, empower the product owners, your product owners, to be included in the budgetary decisions, to have that budget, to own it, to have the P&L of the product they're working on. Next, allow and empower the developers. It's a strong word, but really they should own it, right? They should own the architecture and delivery decisions. This should be in their area. And finally, make work transparent. Make transparent, where are we going? What is our purpose? Where do we want to go? Like, why are we doing what we're doing? There is a certain little company now that can do that a bit better with a sort of a billionaire that bought it recently. Things can be done better. You should communicate very clearly what your org is doing. And when these changes were implemented, what happened at the CPG case we are talking about? If we go to the next slide. So first of all, when they moved, and what did they do? So first of all, okay. Hello?
Sorry for the glitch, Thomas. Is this the slide you want or the next one?
Can you guys hear me? Yeah, this one. Sorry, I got something. Yeah. So what happened is that the organization was provided. Everyone was provided with a clear vision. The decisions were pushed down. Like, they were allowed to make the decisions. They were able to release frequently, so they got feedback quickly. And finally, the leadership encouraged teams to challenge organizational efficiency. So really, when they did this, they were able to achieve great results and actually release things that the customers wanted, and not just things that would meet the leadership's needs, but the customer's needs. Let's go to the next opportunity. Yeah, so the next opportunity is a telecommunication company that actually focuses on creating new and cool offers for their clients without actually talking to their clients, right? So they never actually they never ask or look if the customers were happy. Then they were constantly seeing that they're losing customers, and finally they realized that they had the lowest customer satisfaction score in the market. Why? Because they were just doing features. They were just doing cool stuff without actually thinking, who and why are we doing them for? So this is another one of missed opportunity number 2, when work is prioritized on the tasks and on team capacity. So these teams are just focusing on getting stuff done without really thinking about why and who and what for. So what can you do if we go to the next slide? First of all, we did see this in our survey that really almost, again, half of the teams discuss their team's utilization during sprint planning, which is a sign that this is what you're doing. You're really focusing on just filling out the backlog with tasks and capacity. What should be changed, and what are the things that you really should focus on? Define clear goals of success together. The product owner, the management has to define these together and involve the team, of course. Discuss what are your baseline of success metrics. Here, they were not really measuring customer satisfaction. Like, if you do not have that baseline of success metrics, you can't really build a great product. And finally, be happy, celebrate, enjoy those moments of success, and really measure. Like, when you see an uptake in your clients or an increase in sales, be happy. Really show that these are important metrics and that we should celebrate them and we should bring them to everyone's attention. So what happened with this team? And it's so first of all, what they did is they focused on fixing every sprint one thing that the clients were making, like, that they were hurting the client experience, right? So instead of adding more features, they sort of took a step back and said, let's fix the basics. Let's fix every sprint. We fix one thing that the clients don't like, or that we heard from the clients. Second, they started really measuring what matters: NPS, customer satisfaction, other customer satisfactions, like sales and different sales channels and things like that. Like, really looking at numbers and metrics. And finally, which is really cool, they introduced something called the internal satisfaction of call center employees. Why? Because they were the real people they were contacting, talking to their customers. They really got, the sound in the shops or on the floor. They really knew what was happening. And this was also a great measure of success, because the less calls they were being called to the call center, that means that the product had less issues or less errors, right? So this was another very important measure of success. And with that, they were able to come up from number 4 to number 1 and become the number 1 product on the market within a year. So pretty much flip the whole situation within a year by switching and focusing on the right things. Rishi, would you like to walk us through missed opportunity number 3?
For sure. So missed opportunity number 3 was a lot of the Agile coaching and a lot of the Scrum mastery that we came across. It had a bias towards focusing on getting quote unquote Scrum done right, and getting Agile done right versus value delivered well, right? And most of us have probably seen this or have been a part of it in some of the teams we have served. In our survey as well, we got some feedback that 54% of respondents spend a lot of time, have their Agile coaches and Scrum masters spend a lot of time helping teams do Agile, quote unquote, the right way. Essentially, most of our change agents are Scrum police. And that's not the best place to be, because as we will show in a second, the data also suggests that effective Agile coaching is not Scrum policing or Kanban policing or any of the above. It is effective Agile coaching, effective Scrum mastery is focused a lot on alignment, is focused a lot on empowerment, and is focused a lot on being very clear on who your customers are. We've unfortunately seen a lot of organizations that don't have clarity on who their customers are. In some instances, they confuse their internal team members to be their customers, right? Your marketing department, you confuse that to be your customer, when in reality, they are your team members. And so when we talk about Agile coaching, alignment on value, essentially ensuring that your teams are aligned to what your organization wants. You don't focus on velocity or other ancillary metrics that don't matter, but you actually focus on value for your customers. Those are all important predictors for how effective Agile coaching can be. So if we look at some of the numbers that we ran through, there was an extremely strong correlation between coaching, alignment, and goal usage. So if you look at some of these numbers, especially the ones in blue on the slide, there is a strong correlation between empowerment and goal usage, empowerment and alignment, goal usage and alignment, and a very strong correlation between goal usage and understanding of value. And so what this told us is the following. It told us that Agile coaching in and of itself does not have a significant impact on the understanding of value. What that means is, as an organization, if you simply invest in the number of Scrum Masters and Agile coaches who are not value obsessed or who don't kind of teach their teams what value means, you're not doing your organization any favors. Scrum Mastery and Agile coaching that targets organizational alignment and goal usage moves the needle in a positive direction, right? So once again, you want to, in your coaching, in your Scrum Mastery engagements, you want to target organizational alignment and you want to significantly encourage goal usage. You want to encourage your teams to create customer outcome-focused sprint goal and a product goal, right? With the emphasis on a singular goal. It's important that Scrum Masters also be organizational change agents that help create the connection between organizational strategy and Scrum team focus. All right, so if you do these 3 things, for the most part, you're going to be an effective Agile coach and or a Scrum Master. And so what do we learn when we look at some of that data and we look at when we look at the third missed opportunity? Once again, you focus on creating an effective sprint goal and a product goal. Do not skip them. right? Once again, the emphasis is on a singular goal. You ensure that the product goal and a sprint goal are transparent enough to drive alignment. Once again, transparency here means broad understandability. It does not mean visible. It does not mean simple visibility, right? So writing a complex encrypted sprint goal and putting it up for everyone to see is not the answer. The answer is to use simple language, talk about a customer that everyone is aligned around, and create a outcome-focused product goal and sprint goal that broadly everyone in the organization can understand. And finally, do not let anyone dictate the product goal or the sprint goal to your Scrum team, right? So if you're a change agent in the organization, if you're an Agile coach or a Scrum master, work hard to ensure that your team is empowered to create their own product goal and their own sprint goal. And don't let anyone else dictate that to your Scrum team. And finally, our last missed opportunity number 4, is the whole team isn't engaging with customers enough. So this missed opportunity in particular is something I'm extremely passionate about. I'm very passionate about ensuring that everyone understands the purpose and understands the problem space, as opposed to only the UX designer or the product owner understanding the problem space and then handing down artifacts to everyone else to execute on. So in our missed opportunity number 4, we had a large technology company, which is something we worked with, who were trying to move to a new customer relationship management system. And we had salespeople who used the current CRM right before their quarterly planning, right? And real customer data was only held by each salespeople. And this was one of the classic cases where, in the case of this company, the Scrum team that was working on the CRM system assumed that there's the sales force, right? The sales organization were their customers, when in reality, that was really not the case, right? In reality, the people who paid the bill for the organization were the customers. So in this case, the CRM had to meet the need of all stakeholders, and this organization was kind of a prime example of what we see as missed opportunity number 4 in our work. And so what was happening here, right? What was happening here is developers and the product owner were isolated. They were not engaging with true customers, but they were engaging with users at some sense, but did not have insights into who or how the salespeople were selling to, and how those end customers were actually reacting. In this scenario, the product owner and developers were essentially given requirements in a very fancy way. They were working out of Jira, but still those were just requirements for engaging with customers. And what was happening here is developers were unfortunately put in a position where they were not able to engage in customers. So for most organizations who are facing the situation, right, where your whole teams are not engaging with customers enough, for change agents in the organization in particular, ensure that your sprint review has an actual user, right? Not, once again, not your internal sales department, not your internal marketing department. Ensure that there are actual users and fight for actual users to be on sprint reviews. Ask your team to engage with customers during the sprint. So once again, at the minimum, your Scrum team should be engaging with customers during a sprint review, but there's nothing in the Scrum guide that prevents you from engaging with your customers during the sprint on a regular cadence. And so eventually you want to get your team in the habit of interfacing and interacting with your customers on a regular cadence during the sprint. And there are an endless supply of discovery techniques, prototyping techniques that your Scrum team can take advantage of. And so it's definitely something I encourage a lot of change agents to invest heavily in. When we applied some of these learnings to this CRM customer, they started doing a few things, right, to help them resolve this missed opportunity. They engaged a small representative group of sales force and salespeople up front. They also started engaging with end customers, not just with, the salespeople. Because of the way they were interfacing with both users and customers at this point, they were able to introduce an incremental approach to delivery. But they built the CRM system both with input from their users as well as their customers. So based on the four missed opportunities that we saw, we've made recommendations for how change agents and leaders in the organizations should be conducting themselves and helping their teams effectively conduct their goals. However, if you're a leader, this is a really good summary slide based on the four missed opportunities that we spoke about. Number one, as far as possible, try and fund your teams based on customers and customer value streams, as opposed to large annual planning cycles. Align your teams to these value streams. As much as you can, put in place measures that are value-based rather than work-based. And for teams that are just starting out, once again, your product goal and your sprint goal are really, really good places to start. Set your direction with your product goal, with your sprint goal, with your organizational strategy, and with your product strategy. Very important that we build cross-functional teams that are able to get to a goal effectively. That is at the foundation of any agility and any agile way of working, your cross-functional small teams. Encourage transparency between the work you're doing and the customer who wants the work. Try and negotiate these silos in between the people who are doing the work and the people who want the work, right? Try and bring people who are doing the work and the people who want the work close together. And finally, all this will lead to a tremendous amount of conflict. But conflict sometimes is actually good, especially if you approach it with the Scrum values of focus, openness, commitment, courage, and respect.
Yeah, I think to that, I think it's important that leaders also do sort of an acid test, right? When they start changing things to a more agile organization, you should really look at how work flows and see, did we change anything, or do we just call our all departments now give them a different name, whether it's release trains or tribes or whatever else, what other naming convention we use, right? So look at that and ask yourself, are we really changing, or are we just putting old wine in new bottles? Are we just really trying to call ourselves agile, but we're not? And I think a great test of that is the dependencies. In my experience, one thing that can kill or destroy any type of agile transformation or any agile change is dependencies that just get in the way of teams at being successful, right? Because you can create cross-functional teams, you can bring all that, but as long as they're constantly stuck because they cannot get something done because of another team, you haven't really done what needs to happen, right? So remember that, and constantly challenge and constantly ask questions. Are we making our life easier? Are we actually allowing these teams to get stuff done? Or are we putting them now in a new system, which is really the old one, but named differently? Yeah.
Totally. And if you're a team member, right, if you're a member of a Scrum team or a member of a broader team that works with the Scrum team, product backlog refinement is a practice we've seen that works very effectively, provided that you bring transparency to the work that you're doing. Spend time creating customer and user personas, right? This is not something you need to spend an elaborate amount of time on, but honestly, spending 30 minutes to 45 minutes creating a basic persona template goes a long way. There are literally hundreds of them on Google if you try and search for customer persona examples. Invite your customers to sprint reviews. It is pretty unfortunate the number of teams we've seen who treat sprint reviews as demos. Your sprint review is not a demo. A demo is a very small sliver of it, if at all. But it is a core inspection and adaptation event where you sit down, you talk to your customers, you bring transparency into the direction of the work you're doing, and you eventually slowly build trust with your customers, right? So your sprint reviews are crucial. Use them as primary interaction points with your customers. Simply don't have a one-way presentation built into your sprint review. That's a really, really bad approach to a sprint review. Engage customers during the sprint to provide feedback as much as possible. Reach out to your customers even during the sprint. Use different prototyping techniques to reach out, engage with your customers, to provide feedback. And as much as you can, learn about the customer at every opportunity. And ask tough questions about how does your work impact your customer. Once again, a lot of these take time, but they are very effective things to invest in if you want to kind of get out of the rut of simply doing work and starting to work on value. Once again, it does not have to be a revolution. Small steps really help and can take you in the right direction. As we've said, invest in personas, invest in a sprint goal, outcome-focused sprint goal, invest in an outcome-focused product goal. Think about sprint reviews and how you conduct them. Bring more visibility and transparency to the work, especially in these Scrum events. Use them as primary inspection and adaptation events. Encourage everyone to think about the customer. And slowly and surely, you will start moving the team and the organization to customer centricity. If you want, you can help our research. We are still collecting responses. I think we are close to like 150 or 160 responses at this point. But if you want, please take a screenshot of the QR code, and you can definitely help some of our work as we are doing it. And then finally, a huge shout out to Christian. He was instrumental in helping us analyze some of this data. For those of you who have not read his paper, this is slightly old. The paper was finally published on by IEEE, I believe. But his research paper, along with Professor Daniel Russo, dives a lot deeper into some of these anti-patterns that we have pointed out. Our sample size is relatively small compared to what they are working through, but they have a super awesome paper on Scrum team effectiveness. It's a 41-page paper, an extremely dense read, but I highly encourage the read. So if you haven't had a chance, please read his paper and encourage your teams to take the zombie Scrum team survey, which will contribute to kind of the global pool of how teams are functioning. And Dave, I'll hand it to you.
Yeah, yes. Thanks for that. And thanks for Thomas. That was awesome. As always, no surprise there. Always very hard for me not to jump in and say, and another thing, but I managed to control myself because of all the fabulous questions that were being asked. Thank you for the audience for your amazing interactive thing. I know that Yana is saying, well, hang on a minute, there were so many questions and so many good answers. I couldn't concentrate on the webinar. Well, luckily you get the recording within 24 hours, so you'll be able to watch the webinar again, or if you have trouble sleeping, maybe you can use it for that. And also, obviously, the Q&A is included, so you'll be able to read up on that later. And all the links are obviously going to be in the materials that are packaged up, so you can go and grab those materials after. So we've got about 10 minutes, and I'm going to bring some of the questions, or certainly a version of some of the questions, to you two, if you don't mind, because I think there's a theme for some of these questions. There was a big theme about, well, what happens if we're not allowed to focus on value. And you talked a little bit about this in from both a leadership perspective and also from a practitioner perspective. You're still sharing, Rishi, by the way. Oh no, you're not. What's the first thing? So imagine I'm a Scrum team. Work is either because of, there's some sort of scaled agile framework approach being used where work's coming down and coming to me, or maybe there's some other process that's in place that's not allowing me to take ownership of value. It's really just work that's hitting me. What would be the first thing you would suggest that they should do in that situation?
I can start and Rishi go. I think I would speak up. I think it's very important that you are part of the team, right? And whenever you feel like you don't know why you're doing this and why are we focusing on this, you have to speak up. And whatever scaled framework or approach you're doing, there's always a bottom-up sort of feedback process built into it. Or if there isn't, this is another thing you should be bringing up and saying, hey guys, I don't think our voice is being heard. So I think it's important to speak up and then find a person to talk to. Usually your Scrum Master can help, your product owner can help, but if you do not have a product owner, find the person who is defining the backlog, who is helping you with this, because they should also come with these answers and they should also be able to help you in this. But the number one thing is to be aware that you are not focusing on value, and then use the Scrum events and really use the people around you to bring that focus back, or just start focusing on it.
Rishi, anything to add?
Yeah, I would also in addition say fight to know your customer, right? The unfortunate reality for a lot of these scaled frameworks is they tend to remove the team farther away from who the customers are. And I think if you're a change agent in one of these organizations, one of the first things you can do is help your teams get closer to the customer by fighting to know who the customer is. Use techniques like customer personas, empathy maps, among others, just to know and encourage your teams to know who your customers are. And slowly you will start seeing some of the hypotheses that are handed down to you being questioned very quickly. That would be my approach.
So I believe, thank you, gentlemen, that was a great answer. Curiosity. By walking the talk, by always asking when somebody gives you something, so what is the impact to the customer? How do we measure success? How do we know that I'm doing a good job? And presenting that back in a positive and respectful fashion, not creating this sort of conflict, can be incredibly powerful, because ultimately everybody, at the end of the day, I believe that everybody is ultimately trying to satisfy customers and other stakeholders to deliver value to the organization and create a good place to work. I don't think these are anathemas to the way in which we work today. So hopefully we can just step back and provide that curiosity spotlight. There's another question really about organization. So, all right, how do we actually organize around value in our Scrum team? We've got BAs, we've got QAs, we've got, all these different things. Should everybody be thinking about the customer, or is it just the BA's responsibility to communicate that, or what? How does organization inside the Scrum team have any impact on value?
Yeah, I'll take that first, because that's something I'm extremely passionate about. I do think everyone should be customer obsessed, and it's not selected people who should be customer obsessed in the organization. And it's unfortunate that still doesn't exist, but it is an area that all of us should aspire to be. If you look at some of the top organizations in the world today, right? One common theme among how they all work is they're all customer focused and customer obsessed. A funny story: I was having dinner with my cousin last week. She works for Meta, but keeping aside all the all the bad press that Meta has received. I was asking her about how she works and her day-to-day life as an engineer in Meta. And the stories that she told me about how she's empowered to actually go to a product manager, product owner, same difference, and talk to them about what they can build for customers and run experiments was mind-boggling, right? When you compare, and I'm sure she's not alone, right? A lot of these organizations treat their engineers as first-class citizens who can actually contribute to customer value. When you look at how they are treated, right, versus how engineers and developers in some of the other organizations are treated, there's such a stark difference. And to your question, I think everyone, once again, should be customer obsessed, not just certain people.
Thomas, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to agree with that. I think, but also, show them. Like it's usually a Scrum Master or an Agile coach or a product owner should sort of share stories or really encourage the team to, hey guys, I mean, let's look, if we talk to the customers, we can get this. You should be talking to. Let's go and talk. Like really pull them out of their comfort in their seats and have them talk to the customer, right? I think it's also something important. Sort of motivate them like a coach. Like you've seen the videos, like in all American movies that I've seen, there's always a coach figure, sort of like that, right? Be the Bugs Bunny who gives the lemonade, who gives the teams to beat the monsters, sort of stuff like that. Really use that to say, hey, let's look at what we can do. Let's talk to our customers. And usually most big enterprises I've worked with have a flagship or a store in their building that talking to your customers shouldn't be that difficult. And I can tell you, I've done this several times with the teams I've worked with. It has never backfired me. It was always turned into great stories that they repeat and tell others in the organization. So yeah, do that. It's really good and it's really fun, because I've seen like managers be very afraid to talk to their customers, and they've been working at this company for like 10 or 15 years. Like, hey, I don't want to. Like, yeah, to push them, motivate them. Yeah.
So just a slight a different sort of question. It's about dates. Value versus dates. The great thing about waterfall and traditional industrial approaches is that you commit to a day, you commit to a set of requirements that nobody really understood, so you could deliver anything and nobody would actually notice unless it blew the place up. But as opposed to this approach, which ultimately is sometimes picking at kind of tricky and challenging, as soon as you recast a problem in terms of the outcomes you're trying to achieve and the value, dates become difficult potentially, because there's it increases the amount of complexity, or even worse, unknown, which is a form of complexity. So what do we do about that?
Yeah, and that's an unfortunate reality that a lot of organizations face today, right? You do have to hit timelines. The other unfortunate reality also is a lot of these timelines are made up. They are basically some hippo's perception of what.
By the way, as a hippo, I'd just like to be slightly offended there, but yes. Okay.
But you're an awesome hippo, Dave. I'm talking about.
Thank you. Yeah, literally in the bath, I look a bit like that.
But yeah, so it was a lot of the dates are unfortunately made up. This is of course assuming there are no real regulatory or other dates that you have to hit. So a couple of quick pieces of advice, right? If you are in one of these organizations, the first thing that comes to mind is there's a lot of work being done around probabilistic forecasting, which is more data driven, right? If you want to look more into that, Daniel Vicanti, Pratik Singh, they are my go-to experts. They have an awesome YouTube channel that you can plug into. Dan is also a fellow PST, so he's done some significant work there. The other piece around it is once you get a sense of what timelines you want to hit, There's another piece of work called good faith estimates. And this is something that Marty Kagan has popularized a lot in his book called Inspired. Basically, what he talks about is once you understand what the customer outcomes are and what you want to go after, use prototypes to understand what you can deliver, and make some good faith estimates, emphasizing on good faith to your leadership team. Right. So between probabilistic forecasting and good faith estimates, you can start kind of cracking the ice on cost, schedule, scope triangles in organizations. That would be my perspective.
I'm sorry, we haven't got any more time, Thomas. I know that this is a big, I know, and I'm so sorry, but we have to be respectful of the time box. People have taken the time out of their time, and this could be a whole separate subject. I'm sorry that we didn't get, for instance, Dax. I'm sorry that we didn't get to ask your question, which is fabulous. And Frank, you've asked amazing questions, and hopefully I got some of them in. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, our two presenters, Thomas and Rishi. I thank you on many levels. Thanks for being my partner in this and taking this idea and really running with it a lot harder and deeper than I could possibly. Thank you for everybody attending today. This was an amazing talk. It could be others, and maybe we'll do other talks in the future around value or around some of these questions that have come up. Thank you, and you'll receive this presentation in about 24 hours and all the materials around it. So thanks, everybody, and have a fantastic holiday season and new year. Bye.
Guys, bye.
Bye.